What is the one thing you want students to know about your transition from provost to president?
So provost is chief academic officer, chief student affairs officer. That was the role. This is more of a broad university role. So the focus is on our primary reason for being here, students. So I'm going to filter everything through how does this impact students. You know, if we're going to hire somebody, does this impact students? Should I be spending money here rather than there? And my first thought is always going to be, how does that impact students? Is this going to make things better for students? Is this going to get us more students? Is this going to get students through the program on schedule and on time? That's sort of it's a different, very different focus. And many of you know this, I went to as many events as I could go to, athletic and otherwise. That'll just ratchet up, and my wife will be there as well. So we're going to be fully engaged in the community. So I think students should expect to see that. And you know, if students have a question, I'm going to address the question. You know, if they come to me and say, "Hey, what about this parking lot?" or "What about this issue or that issue?" I'll answer it, and if I can do what the student wants, I'll do it. If I can't, I'll explain why it can't be done. But students shouldn't feel intimidated by coming and asking, why is it this way? And we'll address that. I have a suggestion box that I circulate to, and when I was provost I did the same thing, but this one goes to the entire university community. People can put items up there anonymously and say, hey, I've got this issue, what do you think? So you're going to see a student focus and responsiveness.
We've heard that you plan to double the number of students on campus.
Yep.
Do you have a time frame in mind?
Depends on our luck. I think it's a 3 to 5 year situation. One thing we need, there's a couple of things we need. One thing we need is, we've been talking about a wellness center for the last 3-4 years. That needs to be done. It's just considered plumbing, quite frankly, today. That my daughter, when she first saw the campus, she was just enamored of its beauty, and then she said, next question, where's the wellness center? Where's the health center? And couldn't really show it to her in a unified way like most places, like the place she just graduated from. So we need to do that first. The plan on the residence halls has been in place for a long time in terms of moving toward more of the contemporary residence halls like we have in the apartments in 5 and 6. We need to start moving on that as well. West Campus is not, essentially we've made no progress there, so Wellness Center will be on that side of campus, but we need to make progress on the west side of campus to round it out. I'm talking with a couple of companies about how to connect the two campuses with transportation more. I hope it's more autonomous transportation rather than driven transportation, so it'd be electric between the two. So we'll see whether we can afford that and when, but to get to 5,000 students or so, you're going to need significantly more residence halls.
Will your focus be on graduate or undergrad
A
studies?
little bit of both. I think the larger tranche of students will be undergrads, but I think one of the things that you think about nationally, that the growth in higher ed is at the grad level more so than at the undergrad level. Although that'll flutter around. I think we're in a particularly great part of the country because of the weather and because of just, it's a growing part of the country. So we're less sensitive to those demographics, but we get a lot of students from New Jersey, New York, and those areas are on pretty significant declines with traditional students. So we would be not wise not to look at graduate programming. And even in your careers, you're going to find that you need a graduate degree at some point. So we may do programs like 4+1, take an undergrad in business, take the MBA before you leave. 4+2s in health sciences or engineering or any number of fields. So we might extend the invitation for students to stay. So it's going to be a little bit of a balance.
One of the challenges at St. View is connecting the entire SLU community. How will you connect the university campus to COL and the centers?
Right. And so I made a commitment when I got here last January that I would visit every single center, and I'm somewhere around a third of the way through, a little bit better than a third of the way through. So I need to know, just the way I learn, I need to put my eyeballs on the place, meet the people, and really get a sense for what they feel like. I went to 5 of the commencements this year outside of this campus, and I'll continue to do that, especially the bigger ones, Savannah, Atlanta, Virginia, so forth. I will go to those, but I did Key West this year, not Key West, Corpus Christi this year, and I visited Key West because I was doing a talk down there. So I'm committed to really getting a sense for that. And my view is, really a little bit better than 20% of the universities here, 80% of it's out there. So if I only paid attention to here, I wouldn't be paying attention to the university. One of the reasons I want a student advisory council out there. Dr. Storms does a center directors routine meeting, and I've told her I want to be in the cycle of that. I'm not going to go to every meeting, but I want to go to routine meetings with the centers so I know what's going on out there. And she and I, there's a reason I moved her office next door to mine. I need to know what's going on out there and how things work. We're working on an even bigger project that goes beyond our centers, and I'm not going to get into any details on it, but that's going to require even more outreach and connection to what's going on out there. So we may, any hiring that we're going to do administratively, it's going to be to create that revenue. What Dr. Kirk did to create this campus was build out there. So he used the revenue surplus to build the campus. I want to follow that same model, but I also want university campus to grow so there's a little bit better balance. Because the campuses or centers out there say, hey, Dr. Senese, you're taking all the money for university campus. So if university campus was a bit bigger, less sensitive to ups and downs in enrollment, it could do its own thing a little bit more readily. But let's face it, I don't have physical facilities out there. I'm leasing everything. We're leasing everything, right? We may build it at some point in those areas. So we have 2 regions that are big, Virginia and Atlanta. Savannah, freestanding, is big. They have 2,000 students. We have, what, 2,200, 2,300 here. So it's a big location. We may build long-term in Savannah, not in the next 2 or 3 years, but it's something we're thinking about because of our presence there. We may have a university system like that at some point in a 10-year time frame.
So will programs at the centers increase?
Absolutely, absolutely. We started to move in that direction too, to be less restrictive about what they can and cannot offer, as long as they have the resources, or they can get to providing the resources. Because some of the programs out there, they're fine. Others, they have 1 person. That's not enough. I don't want the quality here to be affected by the quality out there. So if we're doing a job here, and our accreditor makes us do that too, so we can't do a fantastic job here and not pay attention out there. So that there's going to be some balance, but we've opened up the floodgates, if you will, to, hey, if you can do it and you can show us you can seat a class of students, we'll support you.
We understand that there are a variety of issues that go into retention, such as the inability to maintain grades, decreasing in military funding, financial issues, lack of student engagement, housing issues for older students. From these factors, which plays the largest role in the lack of student retention within the community, and what is the university planning to do to combat them?
So there's about 40 years of literature, research literature on retention, and what the literature says, what works to increase retention and reduce attrition is faculty and student contact, staff and student contact, and student-student contact. So in essence, engagement. So we need to look for ways to help students become more engaged. So whether they're adult students online or on-campus students, how do we provide the kind of support, the kind of faculty relationship that you all enjoy across the board? Not in, you don't get it in every single class. So trying to build out so it's as strong as possible. We had on campus yesterday an organization that also does a technology solution that helps support that engagement. And the technology is called Student Success Collaborative, and one of my former institutions used this software. And it's software that any of the faculty could use. You all will have an interface to this software, whereas if a faculty member wanted to, like you missed a class and they wanted to remind you not to miss class, they could send you a text through this software. They could, presumably, you could do an Instagram if you wanted to, although you guys got to have some privacy. We're going to leave you alone in some of your spaces. But we're looking for of being able to engage people. It won't solve the engagement problem, but it'll allow us in our far-flung 7 states to be able to get moving on that. The other software that we are implementing right now is called AdAstra, A-D-A-S-T-R-A, and it's a scheduling software that's fairly typical in higher ed, that it will allow us to schedule across the entire university from here. So all the needs that the 7 locations in Virginia have can be scheduled in a coordinated, unified way. It draws off your degree audits. So if this group needs English 234, it knows that there's enough students for a class, and it'll put that on the schedule. So it draws off your actual student experience from the degree audit and then makes the schedule that way. Now, the way it's done now, it's done pretty manually. We base it on history rather than what your actual need is. So we're looking, again, that'll help students retain because you'll get what you need when you need it. It'll follow you along rather than follow our capabilities along, and we'll fit our capabilities around it. So I think most contemporary universities that move their retention rates do things like those 2 pieces of software. In addition to the hands-on, so we've hired student success coaches, and we'll hire more of those as we can afford to make sure students have access. We will work with the faculty to make sure that advising works for them and works for the students. So we're looking at both the human and the technology to help.
I'm happy that you mentioned AdAstra, because one of our questions is related to the LMS. Now, we've heard from students that they are having some frustration about the changing LMS every year or 2. Will there be any future changes to the platform?
Currently, I was invited to do the United States has 5 or 6 regions, so we're in the southern region. So I got invited to go to the New England region at the end of September to review Southern New Hampshire's accreditation. Southern New Hampshire right now has 135,000 students, and most of them are online. They use D2L, like we use D2L. We're not going to change from D2L. We're going to use and be consistent with that. Now, are there improvements? Sure. We're gonna follow along, and if there are pieces that we can add to it to improve it, or we find out that they don't work, there's a add-on that we added that allows multiple sections to interact, and what we're finding is in some classes that works, but in most of them, the faculty don't see use in it, the students don't see use in it. We'll take that away because it just, we're spending money for something that isn't working. And responsible stewardship requires us to pay attention to every dime, and we will.
Understandable. And what, we won't hassle you about that too, because we had actually a good opportunity to speak to Mr. Rodriguez.
Sure.
Yesterday
Good.
at Cookies and Conversations.
Good.
So we're actually planning an interview with him.
Good.
But we'll probably give him a bit more heat.
Yeah.
However, one of the questions that is very pertinent at this time. This year, the bookstore has transitioned into a new platform where there are no textbooks in the store. The incoming students are confused that there are no books in the store, and the returning students are annoyed that there are no books in the store. There's panic that is definitely arising through this. Can you explain the reasoning behind this, and does it make sense for the university campus to, the students who expect immediate access to books? In addition to that, what is the incentive to order from the bookstore as opposed to Amazon, Chegg, or other stores that may have it?
The incentive is supposed to be that they're less expensive and that you get them in a package. I mean, quite frankly, you can get the books delivered to your home before you come, even if you were so inclined. What we're trying to do with the bookstore is make it as easy as possible, not difficult as possible. So the communications probably weren't ideal ahead of time, but the idea is that you'll be able to walk in there and just tell them your name and they'll give you your bag of books. You'll have everything in one package, so you don't have to go through the shelves and pick them out yourself. That's what we're shooting for. Obviously it didn't work this fall, but that's kind of the idea behind that. And out in the centers and online, we clearly ship them to the students' homes. I think if you find a better deal online, and you know that you're a customer on that score, you go after the better deal. But the idea is that Follett will match the price, will provide you everything you need at the front end. They need to communicate better.
We understand that Dr. Kumar has been brought on.
Part of the book thing is books. So my son is a sophomore in college, and I spent $1,800 on books for this semester. He's a bio major, which I just can't fathom that books cost that much. I think I paid 120 hours the highest semester in my whole doctorate, everything. We got to help do something about that. So us having the purchasing power that we do across our university is supposed to result in savings that we pass on to you. We're not trying to make money on the books. We're trying to pass on our savings because the expense on that is crazy, and it's one of the things that causes the media and people to say college has gotten out of hand. You know, $1,800 a semester, that's a lot of money.
I spent $500 on one book.
Yep. Yep.
So we understand that Dr. Kumar has been brought on.
Yep.
And Dr. Spoto is now the interim VPAA.
Yes.
And Dr. Daydez has retired.
Great.
Is there a new provost in the plans of being hired? And are there any other structural changes?
Sure. So we're not going to go back to the provost-stereo model. What we're going to do is we're going to hire a replacement for Dr. Daydez. That's a vice president of student affairs. So that search is underway. So when I came here, they were both combined. So Dr. Daydez and I worked together. He reported to me, and academics reported to me. What we decided to do, because just of the nature of way our business is developing and the size of academics, it really needs to be separate, and they need to focus on academics. The VP of Student Affairs really needs to focus on campus, primarily on this campus. Not exclusively, but primarily on this campus. So we saw both those jobs being too big for one person to come in. If we brought one person in again, we would have to have other hires down below, so it just seemed, let's do the separation right now. I worked with Dr. Kumar at a previous institution, and he and I moved an institution from 120, 130 international students every fall to near almost 600 every fall. So that isn't our goal to get to 600, but our goal is, we're about 450 international students. Our goal is to double that. So that's part of getting to 5,000, is to add more international students. And not only athletes, and I know not all our international students are athletes, but a lot of them are, a big percentage of them are. And we fish pretty well and do really well in the Caribbean near us marketplace. We have not gone to Asia and India where the big markets are. While we're sitting here talking, Dr. Kumar is in India and one of his staff, and then they're moving on to China from there and Malaysia after that. So we're going to see a mix of students. And I think what international students do, and some of you are international students do, is they add this richness to the campus. So it's not just about bringing international students money. That's not the only reason to do it. The reason to do it is because it adds to the culture. It makes the experience better, because if you're in a business field or communications field, you're going to deal with people from all over the world. And it is what it is. We think it's a good thing. And so if you look at that 5,000 students, there might be 1,500 will be international, and the rest will be domestic students. It'll be that kind of mix.
Personally, I was pleased with it being from the Bahamas.
Sure. And
learning of the agreement that St. Leo now has with our government, and that gives a bit more morale to the students that are here, and it allows us to transition into the alumni process of giving back to the university. Sure. But given that, and as we double the numbers of students on campus, it may stretch our resources to capacity.
Sure.
So parking, dorm space, class space, schedule sizes, how are we going to accommodate the increase in the number of students?
You can't go from where we are to that number like that. This is all going to be in a sequence. So we know right now, if we look at what our residence hall space is, we have 150 beds open, somewhere in that ballpark. It might be a little bit more than that. The result of Dr. Kumar's work this year is going to be about 110 additional students. So the following year, we have to be ready if he brings in another 110 students, right? So we know now, we're planning now to deal with the sequencing. Again, West Campus is basically a brownfield that we can begin, greenfield, it's not brownfield, that we can begin to develop on. We're buying as well some additional land across the street from Benedictine Hall. We own some of it, and additional piece of land came on sale that we're looking at. And the reason we're looking at it is because of the expansion. We can't well just shoehorn more on it. I'm not going to put a parking lot on the green space, right? We need green space. At some point, and this won't be as distant as it maybe was planned, the Benedictine parking lot will be like the parking lot over here. There'll be a field on top and then a couple of layers of parking. So we're going to sequence this in a way. I need the money of the growth to fund some of this. So there's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing going on here that we're paying attention to. The university currently does not have a master plan, which is fairly atypical for an institution of this size and character. So I've asked senior staff to begin to work with a firm to design a master plan. And what master plans typically are is a sequence of, here's what you're going to do in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And it maps out at the building level, at the parking lot level, at the academic space level, what you need to do in each of those benchmark times. So within the approval for a master plan that we can talk with you about, we can show you the image and show you here's what our ideas are with respect to that. Part of getting to 5,000 here too is additional programming. So we have 60 programs or so. That's a limited group of programs. We don't have health sciences, we don't have engineering. We're going to develop in those areas at some level now, and then over time we're going to look at what's next, what makes sense.
I'm plugging these two really quickly. Are we on time? We don't know.
You're good.
Oh, okay. So for the last 2 or 3 summers, there has been some anxiety on campus, not from the students, but from faculty and other staff, about potential layoffs. We have just overheard where someone was laid off for plan ops. Is there any way that you can reassure the staff with the stability of the university going forward, or their place in the university moving forward?
Well, we depend on faculty and staff to do what our business is. Our business is educating students, is working with students to help them achieve their goals. So they're crucial to that. Can I sit here and tell you with 100% guarantee that we're not going to make changes? I can't do that because higher ed isn't like that anymore. Any business is not like that anymore, unfortunately. What I am pretty confident in is that we're on a growth trend line. So I can show you, and I didn't bring it with me now, but I plotted out since '03, I think you saw the chart, I plotted out what our enrollment has been over the years. So we've had 3 downturns in our enrollment over the last 15 years or so. And after each of those downturns, we took off. So after the last one, we increased by 29%. So I gotta believe in my heart that we're at that point where we've gone through a little dip, we're back on this kind of curve. So as long as we grow and as long as we achieve our financial goals, that would be the last thing I want to do. I was at a university where I had to do it 3 times. I had to lay off staff 3 times. It's the most painful thing to do in the world. And it hurt the institution. It hurts the institution long term because they're part of the culture. They're part of the professional fabric of the institution. So I'm going to do everything I can to not have that happen. But I can't guarantee it, unfortunately. I'd love to be able to do that.
Did you vote in the Florida primaries?
Yes, I did.
What did you think about the results?
I love the results. At the governor's level, loved it.
Are there any plans to expand the library?
That has to be part of the master plan as well, because while the setting is lovely, I think it's in a good place. It feels a little confined and old school to me. So most libraries today are technology information hubs as opposed to stacks. This one feels more like the stack model than the information hub model. When I was at Penn State, we built, and I was on the planning committee, we built a new library that was of that style that I'm talking about. And very few books on the first floor. It was really mostly full text databases and that kind of thing. Because that's where the information is right now. And then the books were up on the top floors, so there were quiet study areas up higher. I think we need to contemporize it a little bit. I think when we bring on health sciences, their libraries don't require physical collections. They're all digital, so that's a different kind of collection development. So it'll have to evolve with our size. And as I'm not going to only grow here. I want us to look at other center locations. So 2 states in particular, California and Texas. Growing states, growing need. There's a good connect between adult students and military for us in both those states. The more I expand out there, the more I'm going to need collection access digitally, right? Imagine sitting in your residence hall or your apartment, being able to get full text. So back when I was in school, you had to physically go to the library and search through the stacks. And there's something sad about not having to do that today, I think, because I'd run into things that I never would have found if I didn't do that. But when I know what I'm looking for, much easier digitally to pull down the full text and have it right, don't even have to print it, right at your desk there. I have a unit that I just bought. I'm trying to go completely paperless. I'm working hard to go that direction. So I bought this new iPad type thing where I can write on the screen. So I started putting agendas in that and writing on the screen and then copying it over to my digital backup drive. I think that's where we're headed. It's the paper, as much as I love it, and when I travel, I like the paper books. It just, it seems kind of selfish, and it's not reverencing creation like we should be doing in the same way. But the books feel good, and you can go back and forth. And so the library is part of master plan, and learning spaces are part of master plan.
Are you planning on continuing the drop-in sessions that you started?
Yeah, we'll do those. I haven't worked out a time frame on that yet. So I wanted to do the first meeting with SDU and then ask them about what they thought about that, and what would work well on that. When I did them, I think total count maybe 10 or 11 students, unique students over that short period of time that we did those. So it was valuable enough that I kind of got a good sense for what students were thinking. And I'm going to depend on SGU for that as well, to tell me what I should be, how I should be looking at things.
We spoke already about the gym, and you mentioned some other things in your address about Lewis Hall and some other structural changes on campus.
Right.
What are your 3 top priorities regarding the facilities and buildings on campus?
Right. So the only one's in order now. The other 3 are not in order of priority. So the wellness center, what I've asked Cabinet to do is I want a groundbreaking for that this year, which means it gets started this year. And I don't mean calendar year, this academic year. I would like it to be calendar year, but I don't think that's possible, but I'm pushing for that too. So we have an architect, and I am supposed to get the schematics either tomorrow or early next week on the wellness center. We put together a program team on that, and Derek from McIntosh from SDU will be on that team, so I want a student on that. I looked around this summer at 20 different wellness centers, didn't travel to them, but traveled to a few of them, and then put a grocery list together for the architect and said, these are the things that I want in it. And a climbing wall wasn't one of them because they don't get used, is what people tell me. But a lazy river and a recreational pool, indoor-outdoor space, given where we are. So we're going to come into a period in October where it's going to be lovely outside. Why not have the whole side of the building open so you can look at the lake while you're playing basketball or whatever you're going to do with that. Just, it's going to be very, again, student-centric. I want to put a Wesley Chapel, the Florida Hospital has a, what do they call it, like a health bar in there where they'll make frozen drinks that are either low calorie or high protein drinks, and like have something like that that's different in this location. I wanted to put an ice skating rink, but it was too expensive because it's Florida, so we may put a skate park, something like that. We may put just some outdoor recreational space. So when you come off of 52 and you come up to the hill where you see all our gates, we may end up taking down some of those gates because I want people to look right into the wellness center. And it'll be lots of glass and looking, it'll face the lake. It'll be on the highest part of the hill looking into the lake. That's number one. That's going to happen. It's going to get started to get built. The 3 other projects are, and again, not in any particular order, are Lewis Hall and health science and science. So Lewis Hall is primarily, exclusively science right now. Science and health sciences generally go together, so when we do other health sciences, we're going to need those kinds of facilities, clinical labs, and, you know, depending on what we go into, gross anatomy, all that needs to be done. But I want to unify it because they're very expensive facilities, so I want to do them together. Lewis Hall's not terrible, and we've I think redone some of the labs that are you know, contemporary as we can make them, but there's just so much you can do with a building like that. We're at a time where we're getting passed by other institutions, so that has to be done. That'll be an expensive building, so that's going to take a couple of years to get our fundraising and get the money together on that. In between, depending on what kind of growth we have to do residence halls. So whether we start on the west end of campus, or we take down one of the older residence halls on this side of campus, we haven't made any of those determinations. We kind of like the 5 or 6 model. We like the apartment model, so we're going to play with that. We will have students involved in those planning committees too, so we won't make those decisions all by ourselves. I'm a big fan of consultation and collaboration, so I don't think the president should make all the decisions by himself. So I talk with people before I make decisions. I have no problem making a decision, but I want to hear what people think about that. So residence hall has to be in those first 3 somewhere, and depending on what kind of luck we have with growth, it might get done faster or slower. And then the last facility that's at least on the docket right now, so again, the master plan may change my mind on this, because longer term we need a performing arts space. And I, again, keep looking at where the admissions building is, kind of below that, looking right into the lake, something right there for performing arts. But that's further down the road. Is an arena. We need an arena. So the nearest arena to here is at USF. There's 18 high schools in this county that send their kids down there to graduate. There's county. What we need is a proper arena. And our Bowman Center's great for what it is. This is, I'm talking about a regular arena that could be as large as 10,000 seats. So it will be designed in a way, and there's a model that I'm looking at for this, where the bottom bowl will be about 5,000. Then the other bowl, second bowl, and third bowl will house the rest. You can close them off, and there could be events going on in the arena while you're using the main floor. So it'll be this multi-purpose sort of thing. There's an arena in Evansville, Indiana, called the Ford Center. And that's kind of the idea, is that it's a multi-purpose thing that the county and the state will help pay for it, and it will make Evansville Arena right now, Ford Center Arena, makes $4 million a year. So it's a revenue producer, so it'll allow me to do other things for students here. So again, I'm thinking about students and saying, okay, how can I make money elsewhere so I can then reinvest into campus, into scholarships, or whatever it might be. Jobs as well. So a lot of international students have said to me, create more jobs on campus because we can't work off campus. I said, okay, this is a way to do that. So the arena may take 3-4 years. That's going to take longer because it's a big project. Part of the reason to buy the land across the street is to put it across the street. So if you look at it from this side, here's my vision right now, it's 15 feet off the ground. And then on the other side, facing that little valley, and then it's like 50 feet off the ground, and it's all glass looking into that valley. So when you look at it from campus, you don't see this big behemoth kind of building. And I want to keep the grass. So you can do parking lots today with this concrete, the crosshatch concrete, where the grass will grow up in between it, but you can still park on it. So when it's not being used for the arena, it'll look green rather than a big old parking lot. So we're again, trying to figure out how we're going to do this and what we're going to do. I've already spoken with the school district out here who's very interested. Pascal Hernando, community college is interested. Other people in government I've spoken with as well. So we'll see. They got to sign something now and get us moving in that direction. Once we get done with the Wellness Center, we're going to pick one of those other projects to start. And the residence hall is in some ways much easier than the others because the banks like residence halls because they make money. So they can give you money, a loan, a mortgage, because they know you're good for it because students will live in it. The other two are more of a challenge. But I want it all coordinated in a master plan. So it can't come out of my head and say this is what should be done, but we can't be in a position as we all sit here now and not have plans for some kind of forward momentum. Look at any major university in the country. Look at USF, look at UCF, UT. They're all doing something. They're not staying in place. We've sat in place for 3 years. That's it. We gotta start moving and developing because it's in our long-term interest. It's in your long-term interest. I graduated from Penn State in 1982. The value of the degree today is 10 times what it was then, because what Penn State did was continue to develop. Didn't have a law school, didn't have a medical school, didn't have an IT school, didn't have, you know, a business school at the scale they did, but they, over the 30 years since I left, they've developed. You should expect the same, because your degree will increase value because there's more value to attend.
My final question is looking further ahead in the future, in this academic year, regarding graduation. We've outgrown
Yep.
the Myron Bowman Center at this
Yep.
point. Is there any plan to add a December graduation and also in the next graduation, for the next graduation, where will that be held?
Yeah. The next graduation will be downtown. We're the Expo Center, I can't remember the name of it.
You guys know it's where they do concerts and stuff. Or with
Fairview?
the Expo, with the Expo.
The Expo, the Expo, yeah. So it'll be at the Expo this year, and we're going to do, we originally planned to do one, but our calculation is that there's 1,750 graduates, potential graduates. If you do one, it's gonna be 5 hours long. So I don't think families or you all would wanna sit through that. I don't, you know, I was at another institution where we did 3 of 1,500, and it was really a long situation for everybody involved. So we'll do 2 to break that up. We're going to do the mass and some sort of meal or something on campus on Friday. So we'll try and get parents and families and everyone to come to campus on Friday, and then we'll do the commencement downtown on Saturday. Grads will get, I think they were talking about free parking for grads, so we'll make it easy, and we'll do transportation as well. But we just outgrown Bowman. It's just not, it's not feasible anymore. Some of our board members are not happy with it because it's a tradition and they want it to continue. We're going to try this year. And this decision was made before I got here, but that's okay. I mean, I think I'm used to places that are a bit bigger in terms of concentration. So my previous place had 10,000 students on campus, so we just couldn't do it on campus. So we went to the local arena. And there's a way to balance getting them on, getting families and students on campus to see it, as well as having a much more comfortable situation with regard to commencement location. We restrict the families to attend too much here because of our seating, and that's not right. Given what you're paying for the degree, you should be able to bring who you want to it, and if we don't go to a bigger venue, that's not going to happen. And part of the arena is, if we have a 10,000 seat arena, we don't have to go anywhere now, 3 years from now.
Well, thank you very much. Sure. I think that concludes all of our questions.
Sure.
We are very much so appreciative of that.
Sure.
For you.